The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Mr Speaker, I can't help but smile. The stress test from the Reserve Bank has come out with a statement, quote, banks could be left managing large amounts of land for years and have most of their profitability wiped out. Mr Speaker, the image of bankers in a herringbone pit trying to get their money from the cow's tits instead of the farmers' bank accounts is just too good to be true, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, how have the farmers, how have the bankers got into this situation, Mr Speaker? Indeed, the stress test said the banks could lose $3 billion. That seems like a lot of money when you say it slowly. That's actually 9 months of the bank's profits. When you look at it that way, Mr Speaker, the question is, why not? Because the farmers are losing years of profits in a situation, Mr Speaker, that is dire for many of them. How did they get there is the question. Well, some might have been called greedy, but mostly they were ambitious and naive, hard-working Kiwis who wanted to get on and grow their business and grow the benefits for New Zealand, Mr Speaker. They were told by Dairy NZ that we can increase productivity, things are all good. Dairy NZ subsidised by taxpayer funding, pushing money down their throats to push more productivity. They were told by Fonterra that we had a triple V strategy, Mr Speaker. Volume, value and velocity. No one knows what it means, but it's got a great future. They were told, and then we had people saying things like, quote, and in my view, that is going to bottom out and pretty soon and start going back the other way. This was not based on hope, but fundamentally based on a massive consumer demand. All these things. That was in November 2014 from the Prime Minister. And his constituents, those hard-working but naive farmers, believed him. Believed him, Mr Speaker, and the banks were happy to throw money down their throats, and the Prime Minister would go around the world getting photos of Fonterra and its growth. And now the farmers are asking, how have we got here, Mr Speaker? Well, the PM's instincts are pretty simple from a trader. When things get bad, sell, sell, sell. Who to? Well, the question of who to. And indeed, and what I picked up today in the Farmers Weekly, indeed, it's in the property pullout. Fancy that, isn't it? This is the real estate part of the farming magazines that are growing in size every single week as more and more properties come onto the market, Mr Speaker, into a smaller pool of people who want to pay the money. There is, however, hope from the Prime Minister, I'm sure, that overseas investors will walk in, step in, prop up property prices, Mr Speaker, and buy a huge portfolio of our farmland. Mr Speaker, that is not something that Labor will stand by and let happen. We've said we will put a line in the sand so that in dire situations that the farmers face now, they must not be forced to sell out to foreign investors, Mr Speaker, who are taking opportunities that should not be there. Mr Speaker, how have they got here? Where to now for our dairy industry, Mr Speaker? These stories have been out there around the wider arena, Mr Speaker. That's 2015 in August last year. Yet we had the Prime Minister and the government completely in denial, continuing to fund irrigation and growth in dairy and PGP for Dairy NZ, continually in denial of the reality that the world is awash with milk. Mr Speaker, you don't have to be a genius to work out that that was going to happen. So what are National doing? The Prime Minister says, oh, I support TPPA, that's going to be the solution. Well, I quote John Wilson, quote, we are very disappointed that the deal falls far short of TPP's original ambition. Mr Speaker, it does very little for the dairy industry. The Prime Minister says, oh, support RMA reforms. The reforms that will effectively turn good productive land into house sites around Auckland, Mr Speaker. That is not good news for our dairy farming sector. This government, aided and abetted by the banks, has thrown money at naive, well-meaning, well-intended and ambitious dairy farmers, Mr Speaker, and the debt levels are up to, I'd guess, about $40 billion as of this day. The last calculation, $38 billion. Mr Speaker, I put it to the banks. It's time for them to take their losses And if it is $3 billion, then that's only 9 months' profit, Mr. Speaker. It is incumbent upon every one of us to support the good, hard-working people who have gone to farming, to dairy farming, Mr. Speaker, who continue to create wealth for this country. We need to look after them and give them a fair go.